If you've ever done everything right and still been treated like you were the problem, this one's for you. Stay until the end because the way this played out still surprises me. I still remember exactly how the kitchen smelled that evening, dish soap and something overcooked from earlier in the day. I set her mug on the table, chamomile, the way she always wanted it, and I asked the question I'd been thinking about for a week. Her birthday was coming up, and after nearly 8 years of marriage, I still made an effort. That was me. That had always been me. Samantha didn't look up from her phone. I asked again, kept my voice level, told her I wanted to do something she'd actually enjoy this year. She set the phone face down, looked at me the way you look at a stranger asking for change, and said she wanted me completely out of her life. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just stood there for a moment, with the dish towel still in my hand, processing what she'd actually said out loud. 37 years old, nearly 8 years in, and this woman just handed me her wish list over chamomile tea. I'd heard that tone before, the one that was designed to break something open in me. She was watching for it. I could see it in the slight tilt of her chin, that little pause where she expected me to start apologizing or asking what I'd done wrong. I didn't give her either one. I cleared her plate from the table, carried it to the sink, and said I understood. Before you keep listening, share in the comments which country you're watching from. And let's continue. Her smile slipped, not much, but enough. She hadn't expected calm. She'd expected begging, or at least a tremor in my voice. Instead, I turned back from the sink, dried my hands, and reminded her, quietly, without drama, that her birthday was 6 days away. I watched her expression reset into something harder, and I walked out of the kitchen. That night I moved into the spare room. Not with a slam or a speech, I just carried my pillow down the hall and closed the door behind me. Whatever needed to be repaired between us, she'd made clear she had no interest in it. So I stopped trying. I lay there for a while going through the numbers in my head. Our joint account had enough to split cleanly. The next morning I moved exactly half into a personal account I opened alone, leaving her side untouched. Enough for groceries, utilities, whatever she needed day to day. I wasn't going to drain her and give her a reason to call me reckless in front of a judge. I called the landlord that afternoon. The lease had always been in my name. He confirmed it. I told him I'd be in touch about a transfer. Then I found a small apartment 20 minutes away. Nothing special, clean, quiet, available in 5 days, and I put down the deposit on my lunch break. I booked movers for the morning of her birthday, reserved a storage unit for the furniture I wasn't taking, kept all of it off any shared calendar. Samantha noticed none of it. I kept going to work, kept cooking on the nights it was my turn, kept paying the current bills. I gave her zero reason to think anything had changed. She probably assumed I'd absorbed the blow and gone quiet the way I always had before. I also changed my account passwords that week. I'd been meaning to for a while, and then I noticed a charge on our shared card, a weekend retreat billed under something labeled wellness. I didn't recognize the property. I didn't ask about it. I just canceled the charge and started paying closer attention. 2 days later, I was home earlier than usual. Samantha was in the living room with her phone on speaker, laughing at something Janet had said. I came in through the side door and neither of them knew I was there. Janet said something about how I never asked questions, said I never noticed the extra fitness sessions. Her voice had that particular kind of amusement that meant she'd been entertained by this for a while. Samantha laughed and called me dependable furniture. She said Em was expecting her after the birthday. She said she'd been careful. I stood in the hallway for maybe 30 seconds. I didn't storm in. I didn't make a sound. I just listened until I'd heard enough. Then I stepped back outside and sat in my car for 10 minutes. When I went back in, I went straight to the shared tablet on the kitchen counter. We used it mostly for grocery lists and streaming. I opened the messaging app and found what I needed in about 2 minutes. A conversation with Em, a name I didn't recognize, laying out a lake retreat for the weekend after her birthday. My card, the same one she'd used for the wellness charge, was already attached to the booking. I photographed the relevant messages with my personal phone. Clear enough to read, time-stamped, unambiguous. Then I emailed everything to my attorney with a short note explaining what was happening. The charge for the lake house was already canceled. The screenshots were already filed. I put the tablet back where it was, face up, exactly as I'd found it. The worst part wasn't Em. The worst part was Janet, the way she'd laughed, the way she knew, The fact that she'd apparently sat with Samantha and helped her rehearse whatever she planned to say to me. That birthday speech hadn't been impulsive. It had been practiced. I went to bed that night without saying a word about any of it. The night before her birthday, I set a small matte blue box on the kitchen counter. Samantha saw it, and her expression shifted. That careful kind of pleasure she had when she thought she'd miscalculated someone. I told her it was for tomorrow, and she should wait. She smiled and said she would. In the morning I made coffee, told her the outlet mall was running a sale she'd been watching for, and suggested she head out after breakfast and open the gift when she got back. She liked that idea. She left in a good mood, the blue box sitting unopened on the counter. I made one call to confirm the movers, then I started pulling things out of closets. They arrived at 9. 3 guys, efficient, professional. Within 2 hours they had my clothes, my desk, my record collection, my tools, and a box of personal items I'd set aside the night before. The last thing I packed by hand was my father's watch from the nightstand drawer. I wrapped it in a shirt and put it in my bag myself. I left 3 things on the counter next to the blue box. The first was a set of signed divorce papers, 2 copies, already reviewed by my attorney. The second was a key to my new apartment, not for her, but as confirmation that I had one. The third was a handwritten note. It said her request had been reasonable, and I'd done my best to honor it. Her freedom, as asked, was now real. The box itself had a card inside. It said happy birthday, and nothing else. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of my new place and started unloading the first box, her voicemail was already waiting. Furious, fast, her voice doing something between crying and yelling. I listened to it once, put the phone in my pocket, and carried the next box inside. By evening, I had 11 messages from Samantha. The first few were angry. Then they shifted, asking how she was supposed to manage the apartment alone, asking why I hadn't talked to her first, asking if I thought this was fair. The last one accused me of deliberately ruining her birthday. Jerry called the next morning, her older brother. He was loud and went straight to threatening, told me I had no idea what I was throwing away, said I was going to regret this. I let him finish and told him I appreciated the call. Andrea was softer. She always was. She said Samantha was devastated and asked if I would consider one conversation, just to see if there was anything worth saving. I told Andrea I wished her sister well. Janet left a voicemail that same afternoon. She called what I did cruel, said I'd blindsided Samantha on her birthday, said no reasonable person walked out like that without warning. She didn't mention M. She didn't mention the lake house. She didn't mention the part where she'd laughed about how I never noticed anything. Over the next few days, a handful of mutual friends reached out. Most of them had clearly only heard one version. I didn't correct it in detail, I just told each of them the same thing. She asked me to leave her life, and I respected that request. Patrick was the one who leveled with me. He called midweek, said he felt bad, and admitted that Samantha had told him a story about my father's watch, that she'd found it among her things and needed my address to return it. He said she'd used that to get my new address from him. He'd given it to her before he thought it through. He sounded genuinely uncomfortable about it, and I believed him. She showed up 4 days after I moved out. No watch in her hand, no bag, nothing, which told me everything I needed to know about the watch story. She'd used it to find me. Now that she had, she was standing in my doorway without an exit strategy. I let her in because I had nothing to hide and no reason to escalate. She sat down and started talking. She said the birthday thing had been stress talking. Said she hadn't meant it the way it came out. Said Janet had a habit of exaggerating, and that whatever she thought she knew about M wasn't the full picture. I let her get through it. Then I named the lake house by the specific property name in the messages. I described the hidden charge and the exact wording of the message she'd sent M about a life after me. I said it calmly, the way you'd read a grocery list. She went quiet for a moment. Then she said M had stopped responding after he found out I'd actually left, that once the apartment situation became uncertain, he'd gone cold on her. She said it like I was supposed to feel something about that, like it explained something. I told her I wasn't surprised. I also told her she'd made the choice to end the marriage before she said it out loud in that kitchen, and all I had done was stop absorbing the cost of a decision she'd already made. I wasn't the one who'd pulled the ground out from under her. She'd done that herself, and counted on me to keep standing in the hole. She left without the signed papers. The divorce didn't turn into a war. My attorney handled most of it, and Samantha, without M and without leverage, didn't push hard. The landlord eventually transferred the apartment lease into her name since she was the one staying, which meant I was off that obligation entirely. It wrapped up in a few months. Quiet, clean, final. Patrick threw a barbecue that summer and invited people from both sides of the old circle. I went because I had no reason not to. At some point the subject came up, the way it always does when enough people in a room knew the same couple. I said one sentence. She asked me to leave her life, and I found out she'd been planning a trip with another man on my card. I didn't editorialize. I didn't go over the details. One sentence, then I went back to my drink. 2 people came up to me separately that afternoon and apologized. Both of them said they'd believed her version and felt like they'd handled it wrong. I didn't ask what her version had been. I just told them I didn't hold it against them. Patrick pulled me aside near the end of the night. He'd stopped defending himself about the address thing weeks earlier, which I respected. He told me, without any obvious agenda, that Samantha had blamed Janet publicly at some point, accused her of stirring things up and making the marriage worse, said it had ended their friendship. He wasn't trying to make me feel good about it, he was just telling me what happened. I thought about Janet laughing on speakerphone, calling me dependable furniture, helping Samantha rehearse a speech designed to make me break down in my own kitchen. I didn't feel satisfaction exactly, just a kind of recognition. People's choices have a way of finding them. My new place suited me. Small, mine, no tension in the air. I started sleeping well for the first time in longer than I could honestly remember. I kept my money, kept the calm, kept the life I'd been funding for 8 years. The only thing I'd actually lost was the version of myself that kept showing up to be taken for granted. I didn't miss him. Would you have walked out the same way I did, or handled it differently? Drop your answer in the comments, and if this hit close to home, hit like and subscribe.